Coming to you from the penthouse of my tower high atop the majestic Sapphire Mountain Range in the Northern Rockies, and also from the Stygian depths of the foreboding forests and bogs of northern Minnesota. Welcome to World Bigfoot Radio. I'm your host, Duke. I'm joined here by my co-host and tech wizard, Grant, to bring you another entertaining and thought-provoking chat on the subject of mystery hominids, wherever they may be found. But before we get started with tonight's show, let me tell all our listeners that if you have had a close encounter or sighting, we would love to hear your story. And also, if you have any questions, comments, or complaints about the show, or have a suggestion for a future show topic, hey, let us know. Both of us can be reached at worldbigfootradio@gmail.com, and I also have a page on Facebook called Montana Bigfoot Project, where you can also reach me, and as well as that, you can see blogs, video, and listen to podcasts not only from myself, but from many other reputable researchers from all over North America. So without further ado, it's time to go squatchy. Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the World Bigfoot Radio. Today we're going to cover something that happened actually up in one of my research areas in Paddy Canyon here in Montana. And this was before I was doing any research there and before these two guys even met me. And one of them has actually since been up there doing research with me and taking some pictures, including the one that you're going to be gracing the artwork, if you want to call it that, for this episode. Is a picture that he took of the skeleton tree in the area I was researching up there. He was up there with me. And we're also going to mention something that happened one of the times we were up there. But I'd like to bring on my friend Jeff and my friend Sid, who's also the drummer from Swamp Ritual, and was on episode 1. Say hi, guys.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me again, Duke.
Yeah, always glad to have you, Sid. You know, at the time that I had you on, I wasn't even really aware that this sort of experience had happened to you guys. I had heard from pretty much all of you, and one of the reasons that I went up there and did, any poking around to start with is because I had heard that you guys had all had, strange things happen to you up there, and I figured, what the heck, I might as well go take a look into it and see if there was anything to it. And now I find out from you guys that you had, one specific weird experience up there that you think might actually be Bigfoot related. You want to tell us a little bit about it? What you were doing, what time of the year it was, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it was summer a couple of years ago, and Sid and I were hiking up in the mountains, and we just started hearing this really bizarre noise. It kind of sounded like a person yelling and swatting something over and over. I wasn't sure if it was a person or not. Definitely male, really low voice. And eventually, that went on for about 15 minutes, and eventually it turned into kind of a scraping noise, as if someone was sharpening a sword, and that turned into some weird screeching noise and more like yelling and thumping. I have no idea what it was, but Sid, do you have any other recollections of that?
Yeah. It sounded really metallic sounding, but then it kind of almost did have some vocals to it, almost like, I don't know, like a pterodactyl screech or something weird like that.
Yeah, it was pretty bizarre, but here, in between you could hear yelling and thumping, and this was about maybe a half mile out, something like that. I tried to record it with my phone because it was just so bizarre, but when I played it back, the phone didn't pick up any of it.
Do you think there's any chance that it was a human up there that was doing it with their voice?
Well, I think there's a chance. I mean, not the whole thing with their voice, but I don't know. It was just too bizarre, too many mixes of noises to be just a human speaking.
So, wow, okay. So was it pretty loud then? I mean, even though you couldn't pick it up with your phone, that really doesn't mean much unless the source of this sound.
No, it was really loud. Even though it was a half mile out, maybe more than that, it was echoing all over the canyon.
Wow, that is just so weird. What time of day was it this happened to you guys?
Just when the sun was setting.
Okay, happy hour. So actually, if you were up there that time of day, the park is supposed to be clear at dark. People aren't allowed to be up there after dark.
Whoops.
Well, not to say that I haven't done it, but I mean,
Right.
Technically, people are supposed to be clearing out of there. You're not supposed to have people up there making noise or even being there after dark. So did this continue on into darkness, or was it just a twilight?
No, just pretty much in the twilight. I'm not exactly sure what time we were there, but I think it was sometime between like 6 and 9 p.m. Early summer, isn't that right, Sid?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was so long
Yeah,
ago, I probably can't describe the whole scope of what happened.
Well, I understand. It's one of those things that at the time that it happens, it's just a weird thing, and you sort of pass it off and then don't think about it again. And
Yeah.
then something jogs your memory later on, and you go, "Whoa, wait a minute! What the hell was that actually?"
Yeah. Yeah. The yelling didn't seem exactly human, and whatever they were swinging really hard, hard enough for it to echo all over the canyon. And it was a very deep, growly kind of yell. And that went on for like 15 minutes.
Good God. Did you hear anything that sounded like a discernible words, or was it just,
no
gibberish?
words. Yeah.
The thumping part, like, that didn't sound like metallic. Like, the metallic thing we were talking about sounded more like screeching or like scraping. But when we were hearing, like thumping, it sounded like, like if he was hitting, like, the ground, or like it wasn't, like that wasn't metallic sounding at all.
Right, yeah. Like it transitioned from noise into noise over a span of like a half hour, 40 minutes.
Do you think that the weird metallic scraping sound you were hearing could have been done by something using its voice?
No. Well, I mean, shit, maybe. But I really have no idea. Nothing that I know could make that noise.
Well, definitely got some unknown vocalizations going on there for what sounds like a long period of time. Really loud. Shouldn't be any humans up there screaming incoherently for 15 or 20 minutes. Not to rule it out, but it does sound pretty strange, and like I said, I've heard, other accounts of weird things that had happened up there, and then now that I've been up there, I'm absolutely convinced that there is a troop living up there on Mount Sentinel, and occasionally coming down into Patty Canyon and ambushing deer and whatever else it is that they're doing at night, and clearing up before the humans show up again when the sun comes up.
Like I said, I mean, I have no idea what it was, especially accounting for all the scraping, metallic-y noises. But it was just so loud, I can't even stress how loud it was. It was just echoing all throughout the canyon.
Wow. Yeah, that would creep me out. Well, did you guys, stick around then, or was that sort of like, night's over, let's get out of here sort of time?
No, we weren't really, too incredibly freaked out. I mean, I stayed the whole time filming with my phone, hoping that I would capture it. But, no, eventually the noise subsided, and we just were hiking up there for a little bit longer and went home. It wasn't anything too scary to, scare us off or anything.
Right. So didn't have anything that made you think you were, no eerie feeling of being watched, no sounds of anything going on in the woods around you or anything like that. This is just
it was far. Yeah, it was far off enough that we weren't really too creeped out by it.
Well, that's good at least. Yeah, so it would have been going off like 50 feet away from you. Probably would have been a little bit different story.
Then we would have gotten out of there.
Definitely. Anything else you wanted to add, Sid, that you can remember?
No, I mean, that pretty much covers it.
A strange experience. What did you guys think it was at the time? Did you think a human was doing it? Or obviously you thought it was pretty odd, Jeff, because you're trying to record it.
Yeah, I thought it was a person. But I don't know who would... I mean, it sounded like someone sharpening a sword at first. And it was very, very loud. So I have no idea what it was.
Weird. What did you think it was, Sid? Did you think it was a person too, or were you just sort of confused about the whole thing?
Yeah, I was pretty much just confused. I didn't really know what it could be.
I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was a human, but I don't know, some of those noises are just unexplainable.
Wow. So you mean what you're saying is that some of the vocals you heard sound like something a human could produce, and some of the vocals you heard didn't sound like something a human could do?
Right.
Wow.
Well, I don't even know if all of them were vocals. I mean, the metallic scraping noise at first just sounded like metallic scraping, but then it kind of shifted into a screeching. I don't know if my perception was just changing about it, or if it really was transitioning from noise to noise.
Wow. They can make a whole range of weird noises that have been reported, and, they're good at mimicking animals and stuff, and, they also have been reported by various researchers to be able to make non-animal noises that they hear a lot. Bear mentioned that there was a group of them that were near where there was a train intersection, and by law, every time the train has to go through that area, it has to blow the whistle to warn people that, train coming through, get off the tracks. And these things could actually hear or feel maybe the ground rumbling before it got close enough to the intersection to do the train whistle, and they would mimic the train whistle before the train got there.
Yeah, honestly, the metallic-y noise sounded a little bit like a train coming to a stop, like that loud screechy noise that you hear.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really creepy. Man, I don't know what it was that you guys heard. I don't know if it was Bigfoot or anything. I wish you could have gotten a recording of it, but it sure sounds like something a little bit out of the ordinary. And I haven't, I camped up there for a few weeks, and I didn't hear anything like that, although I definitely heard some pretty strange stuff other than tree knocks and crows morphing into owls and things like that you wouldn't expect to be hearing.
I've actually heard weird bird noises up there, too.
Really? Anything that you can...
Yeah.
Anything you can pick up and you can actually remember?
I remember one time I was sitting up there and it sounded like a weird croaking noise or something. But it was I heard it across the canyon, on the other hill, on the other side of the road. That was by the road.
Here, let me guess what it sounded like, Sid. It sounded like a big old giant bullfrog over there making sort of a long bullfrog croak.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
It was coming from different spots way too fast. So it almost sounded like some weird kind of bird or something.
See, now I was hearing that when I was up there too, and I couldn't place what kind of animal was making it. I know exactly the sound that you're talking about, and it was right before dark almost every single night. I'd hear it on that opposite canyon across from that area that you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know if there's some local animal that I'm not aware of that can actually make that sound, but whatever it is, it was really strange and it was really loud, and it was at regular intervals, and it was almost every night before dark it would start up.
Yeah, by that description, I mean, I don't know anything that will make that noise around that area. I could be wrong, of course, but...
Yeah, it's sort of outside of my realm of experience. I don't know exactly what kind of animal could be making that noise and that would be doing it, right at twilight every night for maybe 20 minutes or half an hour, every couple of minutes. How long did it go on for, Sid, when you were hearing it?
Yeah, about that same amount of time, because I think I might have been hanging out with Jeff or someone, and then I was going to meet someone else up there, so there was a little bit of time where I was just this spot up there with some chairs that we leave there sometimes, and so I was just up there by myself for 45 minutes or something, and it lasted about half of that time or something, and then I just didn't hear it at all.
Yeah, if you were hearing it like I was, it wasn't something that, if you were probably sitting there talking to people and you had a crackling fire or something going, you probably wouldn't even hear it. It's not super loud, But if there isn't any other background noise going on, it's really obvious. So yeah, again, there's, and folks, this is what I was talking about when I said I was getting, reports from people of really strange stuff going on up there. So, may or may not be Bigfoot related, but it is in an area where I'm convinced that there's Bigfoot around. And those of you that have seen my videos have seen the track lines and stuff that I discovered up there last year, and the skeleton tree, which we got a picture of. And Jeff took the picture of the skeleton tree. As long as we're on that, Jeff, what was your impression of the skeleton tree when you saw it?
I mean, it was so far up and so far out in the middle of absolutely nowhere that I just can't imagine someone bringing out like a huge ladder to hoist that up there. And I can't even imagine any other animal doing that. So I have no idea.
I've come up with a couple of candidates, animals that potentially could have lifted it up and put it on there, but the thing that gets me about it is I was right underneath it, reaching up with my cane, poking at that thing, trying to get it to fall off that branch, and it went through 4 windstorms. It didn't fall off, and the back end of the scapula, the top of the spine, it had actually been snapped onto that branch around 2 of those fins coming off the top of the vertebrae there, and that's what was holding it in place. And you almost have to have hands to do that. I don't know any way a bird could do that up there. And it was too light for a larger animal to crawl out into that branch, which is the thing that just had me, shaking my head with big question mark signs over it for months, going back and looking at this thing over and over again, and every time finding fresh marks on the ground that looked, like big impressions that human-shaped feet, 16, 17 inches long, would have left. We found the same thing up there when we were up there with the Montucky's Sasquatch team with our recent guest, Mike Cook, and Ed Brown and Rich Rousseau from the BFRO, their stick and tree structure guy, and found a bunch of other evidence right around the same spot. So, it's really possible that what you guys heard up there that day could have been Bigfoot. Maybe it was just a crazy guy up there who was, was reenacting Lord of the Rings, sharpening his sword or something. But
pretty crazy and pretty strong to make thumps that loud.
Well, there you go. So I mean, we can't say for sure it was Bigfoot or anything, but what it was really weird and out of the ordinary. And I'm glad Sid brought up that other sound too, because I heard that up there. And Sid, tell everybody now, I didn't mention ever hearing that sound to you before, did I?
No, I was going to say earlier that's funny that we never said that to each other.
I don't necessarily tell everybody everything that's going on up there, because then when I talk to a local and get their experience, I can tell if they're BSing me or not. And so Sid is not BSing us, folks. I experienced the same damn thing myself up there night after night. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up while we got Jeff on here, too, is he was up there. I don't remember if it was the same day we were up there we took the picture of the skeleton tree, or if it was another occasion, but we had Hank with, and we decided to go walk through this one thicket area that I had been wanting to go through but wasn't willing to do by myself because it was just too dangerous. And the reason I wanted to check it out is because there were a couple obvious trails going in and out of it. It was incredibly thick. And at one point when I was up there walking around by myself, I saw a big old buck get spooked out of this thicket, and he was running like there was an 18-foot flaming devil with a barbed whip behind him. Whatever it was that chased him out of there scared the living hell out of him. And so I said, well, this thicket needs a little investigation at some future point when I have someone with me. So when that future point came and I had someone with me, and it turned out to be Jeff and his faithful dog Hank, I decided, okay, I got some backup here. Let's go, take a look at this thicket. And it was really thick. There was an area that was crushed down where some animal had been in there and laying down and whatnot. And we managed to plow through that, and this is all, the sort of really tall, like briar and picker bushes and stuff like that we were digging our way through. We finally got to the far side of it. And at that point, Jeff started hearing something weird. You want to pick it up there, Jeff?
Yeah, I kind of heard a grunting noise. Just sounded like, from, I don't know, a couple feet away or quite a ways off. It was hard to tell. But I didn't think of anything of it at first. And then I heard it again, almost the exact same. And so I looked at Duke and I said, what was that? Did you do that? And he looked back at me and he said, do what? So I don't know what that was. And Duke didn't hear it, but was pretty prominent to me.
Well, it seems like you heard it again. Like we took a few more steps, and I was a little bit further away from you, and you said, "Did you hear that again?" And I was like, "No, I didn't hear it the third time either."
Yeah, maybe it was like that. I can't quite remember.
Yeah, that's what I recall, because you asked me once and I said no, and then Hank went one direction. And I was sort of walking off at a V'ing off from the direction you were going, and got maybe half a dozen steps further, and you said, "Did you hear that again?" And
yeah, the first time that I heard it, I didn't say anything because I didn't really think too much of it, and I thought maybe you did it or Hank did it or something. But yeah, the second or third time, it was just kind of bizarre.
So yeah, again, that's there's plenty of animals that can make that sort of noise, but most of them are bigger animals. If we were in the thicket with a deer, the deer probably would have bolted because it wasn't a very big.
Oh, and it was close, whatever it was.
Yeah, and it could have been a bear, but again, I think if the noise we were making going through there, and we weren't in any big hurry, and we were making plenty of noise, it had plenty of time to get out of the thicket on the other side and bolt if it had been a bear. And there really isn't much in the way of bears up there anyway.
I was looking around quite a bit too, and just being really observative, and that's pretty much the only thing I noticed.
Yeah, I didn't catch any sign of anything either that would have been indicative of anything other than that there'd been large animals through there and it mushed down a bunch of the thicket material itself. And you remember the one sort of clearing that we found there, and then it went off on the right hand from there and kind of did a 90-degree and went back out the other side of the thicket.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and there was one big, I guess it was maybe 8 or 10 by 3 or 4 feet wide. And then there was just sort of a little narrow walkway on each side of it, so it could have been deer in there or anything. But, well, anyway, was there anything else that you guys wanted to add or that you could think of off the top of your heads?
I think that's pretty much it. I probably left out some details since it was so long ago, but other than that, I think that's it. How about you, Sid?
No, that pretty much covers it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on again. And, Sid, as long as we got you with us here, what's going on with Swamp Ritual these days? Have you guys got any good shows coming up here that somebody might be able to catch if they know you're coming?
We don't have any out of town. We just got back from Helena and Kalispell this last weekend. Yeah, and our next show's in town for another local band, Shromana's CD release show, so that should be fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot again. Thanks a lot again for using my song in your guys' show. Pretty awesome.
People like it. Yeah, we get comments all the time from people that really enjoy hearing it, and that's why we've been playing it in its entirety at the end of the show, so that people that like the intro music can actually hear the whole song when they every show if they want to. They can listen to that. When they hear it coming on, they go, "Oh, the talking part's over. It's time to just listen to some awesome doom metal here for a couple minutes." So anyway, once again, thanks for coming on the show, you guys, and really appreciate it. It's nice to have some more folks from right around the local area here that have actually been up in the places that I talk about and do videos on and stuff to give people another perspective on, what is going on up there, and not just one guy going, "Hey, here's what I'm finding, and I think this." But having a couple other locals up there with me is really nice to have the corroborating evidence for that. So again, thanks for coming on, you guys. Thanks for giving us a little bit of your time, and have fun. And Sid, get another album out here soon, please.
Will do. Thank you, Duke.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome, you guys. Well, hello, everybody. We're back again, and we got our second guest on the show tonight, Michael Owens, who lives down in way down in the south, Missouri.
Missouri is not that far south, bub.
Yeah, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. You haven't even got an accent, for God's sakes. Obviously, you're not that far south. But
I grew up in North Missouri.
Well, that's true.
So,
yeah, that's where you got the Yankee accent from. So you're just infiltrating into the deep south in southern Missouri now.
Well, yeah, it's wet. It's classified as West Central because we're real close to Kansas. We're pretty close to Kansas, really. I'm in the Kansas City metro area. So, I mean, that might shock some people that are Bigfoot people, but I happen to be sitting right in a area that is miles of unbroken timber. So, I mean, it's not beyond the pale.
Yeah.
Certainly.
No, like I tell folks most of the time, any place where you've got lots of timber and water and other animals and food supply around, there's a chance that they're going to be around there because it's everything that they need.
Well, I've kind of known that something was going on around here since about 2008. Actually,
wow.
Yes, 2008, 2007, 2008, around that time. So, strange smells. I've heard knocks and whoops and all kinds of weird. A lot of this stuff is subjective, I know, but most people aren't even looking for that.
Okay, so the other question that I wanted to ask you then is first, how long have you had the property that you're on, and secondly, what was your knowledge of Bigfoot going back before these events started happening?
Well, I bought the property in August of 2005, and I've been interested in the subject since I was about 11, when I actually had a visual from about 50 yards in central Missouri.
Wow, you want to tell that story to us? I don't think you've ever told me that one.
Yeah. How it all went down was my cousin and I had an idyllic childhood growing up when I went there in the summertime to my grandparents. We were squirrel hunting, fishing, or if we weren't doing that, we were hauling hay so we could buy fishing worms and bullets to go squirrel hunting. It was really pretty cool staying at grandma's. But we were fishing the day before this all transpired, and we caught a catfish, and we put it in a puddle of the creek, which is kind of an intermittent creek, feeds into another little branch. And so it was a dry summer, so it was just intermittent pools. And this was a pretty small intermittent pool, kind of a sandy bottom, so it wasn't not murky really. So we put the catfish in there, and
right.
We thought it was cool. We could see him swimming around and stuff, so we left him in there that night. We came back the next morning, and I want to say it was probably mid-morning or something, 10-ish. Went down there, and the water was just muddied up to beat the band, and there was 2 footprints that I remember seeing right by in the sand and dirt, kind of, I want to say they were at least, 12 inches long, 14 inches long, and they were, obviously barefooted, 5 toes, and they were so fresh that I remember the edges of the thing crumbling in.
Wow. So just maybe right before you got there then, probably.
Yeah, right before we got there. And my cousin and I had this overwhelming feeling of just, we got to get the fuck out of here. Oh, sorry. And we did. We booked it up back to the house, and it was probably maybe 15 minutes later, I'm sitting out on the swing facing the woods and just kind of processing what had just happened. And of course we told, nobody believed us and, whatnot. It was in the house. They wouldn't even go down and look at the footprints. Thought I was crazy.
At least they didn't lock you in your room or something.
Right, exactly. This thing parted the bushes with its hands and looked at me.
Whoa.
Yeah, it appeared to be chewing.
It was chewing something.
Chewing something. And it was about 45 seconds to a minute that were, eyeball to eyeball, probably 50 yards away. So I went from being 11 years old and not really having any kind of an experience with that to Bigfoot's real.
Yeah, no kidding. You see something like that?
No kidding.
There's no doubt anymore.
Mm-hmm. So I've been very interested in it. I've read a lot of stuff. I've read stuff in libraries, and before I really got online, which really I've kind of lagged behind. I've been resistant to be on the computer, and I just got on Facebook about a year and a half ago, and so that's opened my world up a little bit. But in the meantime, I knew what was going on when stuff started going on.
Mm-hmm.
I knew something wasn't exactly right.
Was there any certain event or any change in the way you did things around there or anything that might have coincided with when the activity started?
Well, no, not really. I think if anything, maybe just, in the fall, I would have a deer hanging up and I would leave bones out. I'd leave bones outside for the dogs and things like that. And didn't really feed any animals outside. I did feed cats outside. Well, maybe that explains something, but else that happened. But I think I inadvertently maybe drew them, but they were already around. I think they were already here.
They just might have noticed that you were leaving food out for your other pets and went, here's a food source we can gravitate.
Right. Yeah, looking back on the circumstances behind why the people that were selling the place sold the place, and why the wife of the guy that I bought the place from said she'd never come back here.
Oh, really?
She did say that, yes. I just can't go back there.
Did she tell you why?
No.
That sounds suspicious.
Weird. I know. Really weird. As far as I noticed like right away that when I'd go out and I'd set up and I'd go deer hunting, that there seemed like the idyllic place for deer to come through. You look at it on a topographical map, and there's another little water source close by. There's a little pond, and then there's the Little Blue River's right down, probably half a mile from my house. And I just noticed that there didn't seem to be as many deer out there as there should be. One thing that I noticed. Another thing I noticed that there's a little grove of wild plums that's actually on my neighbor's property, but I have permission to be on it as well. Full of red plums. One day, I go back the next, 2 days later, and they're all gone.
A whole grove? They're all gone?
Well, several trees full of them. Yeah.
And they weren't laying on the ground, and then nobody had come over there and picked them all?
No, no. I've had the same thing happen with blackberries. I've got some pretty good sized blackberry briars out there, patches, and one day I went and picked some blackberries and came back and was going to pick some more blackberries. Now, birds could have got some of them. That's true. They could flock in there and get them. But it really seemed odd how some of the stuff was pushed away, and again, nobody really accesses the property except for one neighbor who's, they're old and drunk all the time, and they don't go out there.
It sounds odd to me that it sounds like there's just plenty of ready food supply around. I would have been suspicious not seeing deer around with that much food around.
Well, the deer are around, but they're very, very skittish. I've noticed that they're very, more than normal.
Mm-hmm.
I have found what I think might have been a kill, and it was right behind one of my stands. A couple winters ago, it looked to have a broken neck, and the only thing it was tore open right behind the ribs. And the very next day, the entire carcass was gone.
Was it fresh when you found it?
It was less than a day old.
Missing anything other than a few internal organs that might be yummy, like liver, heart?
I didn't open it up, but that's what it looked like to me. And any other animal that eats on a deer that's predated will start at the hindquarters.
Yep. Especially the big
Always.
cat. Yep.
Yep, especially big cat. I mean, because that'd be the only other thing. And I have found mountain lion tracks out here in the wintertime, and I did see one cross the driveway in front of me one night, late night coming home. My driveway is kind of a lane that goes off of the road, and it's a little over a tenth of a mile down to my house.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of down. It's in the woods, basically, a yard, but I'm like surrounded. I'm surrounded on really almost 100% four sides with woods, some kind of woods.
You got woods in between you and the road. From where your front yard is to the road, there's woods there too.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. There's woods off to there's a yard on the south, and then there's woods on the north side of the lane. I've actually drove down my driveway and seen deer bedded down 5 feet from my driveway, just laying there. And yeah,
mighty close to your house.
It's probably the safest place, really.
Yeah. That's what I was just thinking. Mighty close to your house, like they're trying to hug the wall there or something.
Hug the wall, boys. And if I didn't have dogs, I'd probably have deer all over the place. Not nearly all over the place, but in my yard when it's green growth, they'd be all over it.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a couple 3-4 lawnmower deer living out in the backyards behind the property that I'm on right now, and they don't seem to have any interest in going anywhere else. There's enough grass for them and forage from the other decorative lawn trees and shrubs and whatnot. That they're nice and fat. They were here all winter too.
Yeah, exactly. I had a really weird experience one night. I went out with my climbing tree stand, and I was going to sit off the edge of my property onto another property, which I also have permission. I've talked to everybody around me. I can hunt everything around me. I have permission to at least archery hunt it. And I was sitting my climbing stand, climbing up in it, and I got no sooner had I got up in my stand, I heard 3 knocks from one direction. And then I heard 3 knocks from another direction. And then I heard 3 knocks from yet another direction. And they were triangulating me.
Wow.
And they could I'd say less than 50 yards away from that stand location, I found a stack of rocks just out in the middle of the woods. It's like a stack of those flat limestone rocks. A kid could have done it. I'm not going to say a kid couldn't have done it, but you look at all the little pieces, and it's weird. It's weird stuff.
I know a lot of that stuff that people just say it's so circumstantial. It's really hard to know if it's created by a human or
circumstantial.
And unless you've got something where it's like they moved 1.5 tons boulder or something, and there's no signs that equipment was there doing it. Maybe you can think that
exactly.
A Bigfoot, but any of the rest of it, it's all like, it could have been done by a human, it could have been done by a Bigfoot, and it depends a lot on the context and where you find it, and if there's any people around there ever go in that area or anything like that. So, you can never, I don't think you can ever completely, absolutely, 100% rule out humans, but you can get really close to it in a lot of cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. A little bit more of the circumstantial evidence from right in that area, and of course, one of it ties into some very poor real evidence, but it is nonetheless. I got a casting of one footprint that crossed the trail, and it was smeared in the mud, kind of. Toes were kind of sprayed out, and it was when it was mud and it had been frozen and like rethawed. You know what I mean? Where it's a real thin layer of mud on top, but like frozen underneath.
Right.
It didn't make a very good print. It looked a lot better just in the ground. I should have taken some pictures of it, but I didn't. I was kind of a rookie at it, but
yeah, I always take a picture first before you do anything with the track. That's the rule right there.
Well, yeah, I didn't find that out till later. I was kind of well,
that's just in case, that's insurance, just in case something goes wrong when you're trying to cast it. At least you got a picture of it.
And you were saying before we were talking about weird animal noises before we started recording, and
right.
You made mention of a crow will never crow at night because owls are their mortal enemies. Well, I went outside on my front porch, and this is one of the front porch things that just weird things that have happened. Go out on my front porch and late 10:30 at night, and I hear a crow.
Yeah.
And I'm going, wait a minute.
What's wrong?
I've never heard a crow. Yeah, what's wrong with this picture? And I'm looking through the eyes. My eyes are eyes that have been in the woods, by water, around all the sights and smells and sounds of nature all of my life.
Right.
Since I was a little kid. I'm about the most country, what some of my family would call a city boy because I live near Kansas City.
Oh, no.
I know, it's very insulting. But I went outside in the morning, and I've heard not quite right owl on one to the north, and on the other side down the hill and back up the hill, I've heard another one answer, and they didn't quite sound like owls, and it was at 10 o'clock in the morning. My son, when he was 10 or 11, I can't remember which, he was sleeping on the couch on the front in the living room. The living room front door faces west. He woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning and saw something it was bending down slightly to look in the top window of the door.
Good God.
And it had hardly any neck, and it was like swaying back and forth, looking inside, like swaying back and forth a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a nighttime visual that my son had, and he doesn't want to talk about it.
Well, I don't blame him. How old was he when this happened?
About the age I was when I saw one, but the sighting I had was relatively benign compared to that.
Yeah, when you got the boogeyman, huge boogeyman looking in the window at you at night, that's a little bit different story there.
Yeah, and so I listened to some of the wrong people for a while, and I would put out food. I'd leave fish heads out. Before I started talking to Bear and Kumbo a little bit, I did leave a ham out in the tree that was past expiration, and I'm weird about eating stuff that's past date. Yeah. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to leave it out here, and this was before.
I have too. I'm leery about that stuff. If that roadkill has been sitting there more than 2 or 3 days and it's been over 90 degrees, I have suspicions.
Yeah, me too. If it's crawling on its own, that's probably not a good thing.
So again, as we were talking about before we went on the air here, the ham smell smeared on the tree attracted the arboreal alligators. We'll get to the tree climbing alligators here in a little bit, folks. I'm going to let them continue on to the story.
So yeah, that was another thing that happened. Yeah, the arboreal alligators that Kumbo mentioned. I'm standing outside. This was about a couple months ago, and I'm, smoking a cigarette and looking. Porch lights on. I look out, and there's a set of red eye shine that had to have been at least 7 foot off the ground, and there was no trees right there where it was at. At least it was
a tree climbing alligator then anyway, because there wasn't a tree to support it.
Well, there wasn't a tree. There wasn't a tree right where I saw it at.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it in this one tree in my front yard. Kind of, it's a triple trunk tree, and it kind of goes out, and there's like a lot of space between it.
Okay.
And past that space is where I saw this eye shine swaying back and forth. And they're pretty far apart. Right. I could tell they're pretty farther apart than like a regular size animal, even like a deer size animal.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there, and I didn't know what else to do except for say hi. I was like, hi. So I went in and got my phone, came back out, and there was 2 sets of eye shine then. One was behind the other one.
Whoa.
Slightly, yeah. And then I tried to take a picture, and it didn't take a good picture. It was way far away for trying to take a picture with a phone. It just turned out black.
Right.
And then they were gone.
Yeah, that's another one of those things where it's like, what are you gonna, what could you chalk this up to potentially? And what we were joking about with the tree climbing alligators was that I had mentioned when Mike brought this up originally on the internet that the only animal I know of around his neck of the woods that has red eye shine would be a feral pig. And of course, pigs don't climb trees, and they're not 7 feet tall either. And then another of our friends jokingly mentioned that alligators also have red eye shine. So that was another culprit for a tree climbing animal with red eye shine that not known to climb trees and they don't stand 7 feet tall. So that sort of narrows the field down
right.
a whole.
Yeah, it's you kind of get. I don't want to say I'm used to it because like this spring I've had a couple like I don't want to say they were Class A visuals, but there was something fast and reddish orange down in the ditch that moved a tree when it moved.
Whoa.
And then there was another instance where I, like out of the corner of my eye, I think I saw one duck down that was out in the woods west of my house. Now I can't say for sure that's what it was. I really can't.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that when certain things, I've smelled some really weird smells at certain times, and I do know that when I've heard some things, my golden retriever will not leave my side.
Wow.
And he's shaking. And probably that's why he's, approaching old age, because he's not the kind of little feller that's going to go after him. There was a time
dogs that are too aggressive with them end up not surviving very long if they're in areas where these things are around very much.
That's right. My son and one of his friends were camping out under this kind of cave. It's a ledge kind of, and it's kind of got an overhang, and it's almost like a cave. And it was a winter camp out, snow on the ground, and he called me and was like, "Hey, we don't have any water or any food." And so I laughed and said, you should have planned ahead a little bit better. But I felt sorry for him, so I thought, well, heck, I'll put on some snow camo and I'll take some stuff out there, but I'll sneak up on them. And I did. But the funny thing is like I started getting closer, so I started making like animal sounds. I'd hoot and I'd do other stuff, and they finally got me with this flashlight when I was about 30 or 40 yards away. So I, went up and hung out with them for a little bit while we were there, and it was snow on the ground, so you could see kind of a little bit of moonlight, so you kind of see this coyote comes streaking down the hill right by us and stops, looked at us.
How close would you say?
Like 10 yards.
Well, that's really close.
Yeah. And then I thought for a second it was my dog Bobo. I was like Bobo. And it took off, and I was like, damn, it's not Bobo, that's a coyote. Well, here comes another one. Boom, running straight down the hill, and it didn't stop. So I'm like hanging out with the boys up there, and I'm like, I'm thinking, okay, here I am. I'm wearing snow camo, and I'm making animal noises. And I was thinking, I didn't know that sometimes they're attracted to campfires and like they'll come check shit out like that. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm walking back on one side of this ditch, and on the other side of this ditch is a big live oak that fell that summer, and it still had leaves on it because it fell green, but they were brown at the time, and it was like the perfect, like if you had a ground blind, that would be the perfect place to have a ground blind. And I'm walking by, and I've got my Glock out. I'm like walking back up to the house, and about 30 yards away is this deadfall, and I hear this growl that was not a canine growl.
Uh-oh.
And it was deep. It was close. I could feel it in my chest.
Whoa!
And
big animal to make a noise like that with a growl.
I said, "Hey," I said, "this gun is not for you." And I put my gun away. Because at that time, I knew what it was. Like, at that point, I'm like, okay, got a big one over here.
Yeah.
And, the growl is a warning in case I happen to see it over there, which I didn't. It was pretty well hid. So I made it back up to the house. I didn't tell the boys. They were armed too, but I figured, you know what? Whatever it is, they're just coming around checking them out.
Well, did they have like a cell phone or something so you could call them and go, hey guys, there's an angry Sasquatch between your cave over there and home. Don't worry about it. Have a nice night.
They wouldn't have believed me anyways. But it was one of those deals and they weren't going to leave, But my whole thing is my youngest daughter she's kind of into it too. It's really funny she wants to hear stories about it, but yet she's scared to go down the driveway by herself.
Right.
And I don't blame her, but I also have a pretty good idea. And I've talked to Bear about this too, because I've heard all the stories about Native American women being taken, and there's obviously some unsolved mysteries that are possibly linked to Bigfoot abductions, but I was pretty much set my mind at ease that they weren't going to try to do that with my daughters, because they know that I would go looking for them and other people would go looking for them.
Yeah. And they're also pretty aware of the fact, if they've been around there observing you for any length of time, that you have guns and you shoot them.
Yeah, I mean, my famous saying, I guess, is that they know that I know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They know I know they're there. I mean, I went outside and whacked, the deck with a piece of wood before. Mm-hmm. I've done stuff. I've whooped just randomly just to see what I get. I've whooped before and got a knock in response.
Well, that's interesting.
The only thing I've only heard once. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to go back to that one incident you were talking about where you're on your deer stand and you heard them knocking in 3 different directions away from you. Was that all that they did? They just, each one did 3 knocks in the 3 different directions away from you, and then that was it?
That was it. I didn't have any other interaction.
Had you made like any sort of an audible clue to your location shortly before that? Like a loud noise, cocking the gun?
No, I would imagine that maybe they heard, my stand maybe. My stand, climbing tree stand will make some noise as it goes up, scraping. Right. You can be pretty quiet with it, but you're not able to be 100% quiet. It's just not possible.
So was this like shortly after you got into position then?
Mm-hmm.
Was it shortly
as soon
after
as I got about
position?
Yeah, I got up about 20 foot. I hadn't even got my bow up yet. My bow was still on the ground on a rope. And I just strapped it in, strapped myself in. And that's when, I hadn't even done all that stuff yet. I got up in the stand and got where I was going, and then I heard the knocks.
You want to, Grant, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'll let Grant chime in on this one. I already had this conversation with him in relating to stick and stone structures. And
yep.
Grant, what's the word on any time that there's 3 of something?
I think it was a warning. It's what I heard or what you told me. But out at our cabin, we do a lot of shooting, and just so happens I've seen a lot of stick structures that were like 3 smaller logs that were stacked upon each other that happened to be pointing towards the cabin. In a Y of 2 trees growing together, those sticks were placed there, pointing right towards our cabin. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And this is near where there was another structure or something too, right?
Yeah, there were a bunch of, because it was a popple plantation, and there were a bunch of twisted off popples in. I don't want to say like a teepee structure, but they were, 3 trees.
Tripod.
Kind of leaning against you like a tripod. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And yeah, that gets reported a lot. That's commonly reported thing too. When you got good size pieces of wood that are they're still green, and both ends have been snapped off somehow. If it's any size at all, it's unlikely a human did it because, if you're going to put that much effort in, why not just go get an axe or a saw and do it?
Right. Exactly.
So anyway, the point I wanted to bring up, and thanks for getting into the conversation, Grant. I know everybody's like jonesing for hearing Grant here, so there's your there's your contribution here for a second. But 3 is in stick and stone. What would you say? Trail side maps sign basically that the natives would use in order to leave messages to each other if there was going to be something, that they would have friends following them, that they need to leave a little message for them, hey, I went this way, come on over here, or don't go this way, there's something dangerous there, or, 3 smoke signals meant, hey, big party, come on over here. But in general, anytime there was 3 of anything, it was actually a warning or danger sign. So it was interesting that each one of them was doing 3 wood knocks.
Well, yeah, I just, the only other thing I heard the classic, roar one night.
Whoa, how close was that?
Well, it was some distance from me, but I could kind of still feel it in my chest. It's really hard to describe,
Mm-hmm.
But anytime they're around, there's almost no sound of anything else. They're close by. It's almost like the frogs stop and everything just stops.
And that gets reported a lot, when these things are around, all of a sudden everything gets really deathly still. The old, thing from horror movies where there'll be two guys and sitting there and one of them will go, "It's too quiet." And the other one is like, "Yeah, it's too quiet." Well, that's a real thing, and we've experienced that. Michael's experienced that. Some people think that it's the smell of the animal that actually makes all the animals around the area shut up, or that they hear it moving around or something. Some people think that it's infrasound. And actually, I think that's part of it. I think it's also that they can generate sounds not only in infrasonic range, but in ultrasonic range. Would explain why bugs shut up when they're around, because bugs communicate mostly in the ultrasonic range. And if something made, something in that range, they would hear it, and it would tend to make them shut up. Just, think of like a dog whistle. We can't hear a dog whistle, but it's excruciatingly loud and painful to a dog. And again, maybe one of the ways that dogs know that these things are around, because they may be hearing some of these frequencies that these things can generate that we're not picking up on. So independent of any smell being available or any sounds of it moving around, the dog may be picking up on that and getting that first alert from it.
Yes, I believe that. There's something that we don't. It's a lot of it is conjecture, except for the experiences people have and supporting evidence that people have gathered.
Yep. There's more of that coming in now. This brilliant theory wasn't mine. It was actually Bear's theory that they could also generate ultrasonic frequencies. And one of the gentlemen they had with the Big Thicket Watchmen down there doing a little expedition with them did some recordings and took them back and analyzed them. And he was getting frequencies that were off the scale of what humans could hear on both ends, ultrasonic and infrasonic. And so he's, convinced from that they can generate sounds in that frequency. So bravo, Bear.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's very crazy.
It would make more sense, though, if they could generate sounds in these frequencies that these other animals can hear, that they would be taking clues from them, if they're getting, they want to sneak up on humans and they want all the other animals to shut up. They do their like dog whistle type sound or whatever, and everything that can hear it goes, "Whoa, something big over there, lots of noise. I'm shut up now."
Exactly.
Do you ever have any worries about the kids if they're away from the yard, out in the woods or anything like that?
No, not really. No, not. I don't think that the ones that are around here are prone to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they mostly want to just avoid
usual shy, elusive ones, basically.
Yeah. I don't think that they're. I don't necessarily think they're a danger. I think where the danger comes in is when, like I used to do, I'd put out apples for them, and I'd put out, like I said, I'd put out scraps by the edge of the woods and stuff that my dogs wouldn't eat, and just, vegetable scraps or whatever. And of course I've came home the next morning, or I've seen the next morning after I put fish heads out that, and I've had fish heads with something on top of it heavy, something else on top of it heavy, and come back and the bucket with the fish heads is laying sideways. All the fish heads are gone, and everything else that was there is moved to the side or just, taken off. So long story short, I think they kind of got used to me doing that, and I quit doing it. Ironically, the last thing I put out there was a ham about 6 months ago, and that's where I saw the eye shine at a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was right in that same area. So
they're looking to see if there's any more hams that magically grown on the tree or something.
Indicative of memory.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I don't. If what you've got around there is actually Bigfoot, if you've got arboreal alligators, you got other problems to worry about. But
I think that's a worse problem than
I'd be a lot more worried
your,
about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, just the random alligator attack in the middle of a Missouri forest is something to be dreaded.
Yeah, I mean, it's so rarely reported. It just tells you that, when it does happen, there's no survivors.
There's absolutely no survivors. That's right.
Yeah. Don't take us seriously. We're just kidding. We are just kidding. There are no tree climbing alligators. God, I hope there's no tree climbing. And we know of. And definitely not around there where Michael's living. We're just kidding. So don't take us seriously.
I'd say probably the spookiest thing that ever happened out here. And I cannot tell you for sure again that it was Bigfoot related, but it was really weird. I was home alone on a weekend, and I parked my vehicle that I usually drive in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I worked the weekend. My family was all out of town, and I was taking a nap Sunday afternoon. I was really tired. Front door was locked. Screen door was locked. It had just a screen on it, and I wake up to my dog that has since passed away, barking and growling ferociously at the front door. I'm in the bedroom, he's at the front door, and I've never heard him sound like this before, ever.
Wow.
It was a totally different tone. And it was in daytime, it was in the afternoon. When I woke up and I was like, who is it? Because I heard someone was jiggling the lock.
Whoa.
And I thought it was, at first when I wake up and you're groggy, I thought maybe someone was knocking at the door. I'm like, who is it? Well, the next thing I hear is boom, like a step, and another step off the top deck, on the next deck, and down. And I'm like, immediately, I'm in DEFCON 4. I reach over, grab the AK, which is right by the bed, and come out and go outside. And when I opened the door, I had to unlock it, and then I had to unlock the storm door, because it was still locked.
Mm-hmm.
But the screen had been ripped down.
Whoa.
And there was no cars around. I would have heard a car take off. I went out in the yard, went on the driveway. I'm like, and it was one of those things. There was no noise.
Mm-hmm.
There was no
still
bird noise. There was no the cicada noise. There wasn't any of that.
Wow.
And so, I can't say for sure. Again, I can't say for sure that it was what I think it was, but
right. Somebody is trying to break through your screen door. Why did they tear the screen off and not just unlock the door?
Well, they would have had to have taken the screen down to get it unlocked.
To get at the inside and unlock it, exactly. But then at that point, if they're screwing around with the doorknob, don't they realize that they've still got to open that other door in order to get in?
Oh, I know.
And if it's an animal, they don't realize that, but they also don't have hands to play around with the doorknob.
Exactly. It was just very strange.
I can see why you thought that was strange. That sounds alarming to me.
Hey, Mike, quick question for you. Was that the same door that your son had his encounter?
Yes.
Was it the same door?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Yes.
Repeat performance.
Well, yeah. This was during a time period where I thought it was cool to randomly leave stuff out, and so I'm thinking, if it was a Bigfoot, they were thinking, okay, nobody's home. I'm going to go in here and see what's in here to eat.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And whoever it was not concerned about my 100-pound black German Shepherd Greyhound mixed dog on the other side of the door.
Wow.
Who was going nuts
It was confident that if it got that door open, the dog was going to run the other way, is basically what you're saying.
Or they didn't care about it.
Yeah, they didn't. Well, who in their right mind doesn't care about a 100-pound dog on the other side of the door going nuts?
I mean, I guess, you know, it could have been somebody drugged up. It could have been, I mean, I don't know, but it seemed weird. It was very weird.
That doesn't seem to make good sense. You know, if they're
no.
If they're armed and they're not afraid of a big 100-pound barking dog on the other side of the door, then why go through all this other stuff to get in? Shoot the lock off.
Right, exactly. I guess it kind of leads me to a couple other really weird little things that have happened. Like when I've been here by myself, I've had experienced what sounded like gravel, like pieces of gravel, individual pieces of gravel being thrown onto the roof.
And then running down the roof.
Yeah. You know, you find them in the gutter.
Mm-hmm.
Or they.
What kind of windstorm did we have that blew all this heavy gravel up into the gutter up there?
Yeah. And you know, my son and my daughter were downstairs, slept in the same room kind of the same room. We hadn't been invited, but there was a big window on the downstairs room that they thought that someone was throwing like little pieces of gravel at the window at certain times at night.
Yeah.
So
that would make the kind of sound that you definitely hear, though. I mean, that, you know, makes sense to me why they were hearing it.
Yeah.
So, wow, it just sounds like you've had all this sort of regular activity going on around there. Have you ever thought about putting up any game cams or anything so you can get a picture of them?
Well, you know, I have a couple game cams, but I haven't set them up yet. I guess if I really want them to go away, I probably should set them up.
Yeah, you'll never see them again. That'll be the end. No more problems. More effective than electric fence.
You know what I have thought about doing that would be more effective, maybe more effective, is putting up sound boxes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and obviously those aren't nearly as conclusive as a visual picture. You know, I have some ideas on how to maybe do that too. But I think there's something to do with there's some sort of sounds maybe they're hearing, or some sort of emissions from those cameras that are making them aware of them, even if they're very well hidden.
I think you're right too, and you know, there's other things about them too that some of the smells of the plastics that are used in some of them, you have to mute that because there's some animals that can smell that quite clearly. So you have to be careful of the smell of the things too.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, you're right. You know, and like we were just talking about earlier, if Bigfoot does have this capability of generating sounds above and below the range we can hear, it would just sort of follow that they probably can hear in the range they can generate. And, you know, so if the equipment was making sounds in that range that, you know, well, we don't care about that. The human people that buy this aren't going to be able to hear the camera do that. Well, yeah, but that's not the point. So maybe the cameras, some of them actually do, and I've heard people talk about this, and I think some of them actually do make noises, little whirring or humming sounds or whatever that, you know, maybe these things can actually hear them.
Well, I wonder if anybody's ever tried this, is figure out a way to have a sensor, some kind of, not even necessarily a sensor, but maybe some sort of, you'd have to be really good at hiding the sensor wires, but maybe bury wires that cause, you know, kind of like a gravity thing where it picks it up, takes a picture. The actual unit that makes the picture, tells it to take a picture, maybe that's buried. Maybe it's buried 100 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe it's buried in the ground. and then there's just small wires going to the camera and to the other sensors. Maybe it's a gravity plate, maybe it's some sort of. I'm just kind of thinking, open box thinking about how to maybe do this.
Well, they do. That sort of thing does exist. The military uses pressure sensors on the ground for some of the cams that they've got set up.
Yeah. So that's always. I mean, I don't know if anybody's doing that. I would imagine that would be pretty expensive.
I would think so too, but man, that would be a good thing to try, especially because we've got fairly good evidence that they can see further into the infrared spectrum than we can. So any kind of game cam that you got that's using an infrared sensor is, like the proverbial red flag. They're seeing it, so of course they're in front of it.
One thing I wonder about the cameras is, when you're out setting them up, or even doing anything in the woods, especially in your area, Mike, it sounds like they're around. You have to kind of wonder how often they're watching you, and if they see you kind of monkeying around with a tree or something, or
that's
something like that, or they see you holding something and then you're leaving without it. Like they must be pretty observant, even with the whole food thing. Probably the reason why he was trying to get into the house was he probably watched you bring food from out of your house. And so they kind of figured, I'll, break the door down or whatever, get in and get some food. So you'd almost have to do it in a way where, I don't know, if you could draw their attention to something else or have something else going on in the woods in a totally different location. I don't know if that would even work either, but
just hang a ham off of a rope up in front of it, and that'll get.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one of those.
That might work.
That's trying to use the game cam thing is trying to figure out, how they can most effectively get it to work. One of the more spectacular pictures that I saw that looks pretty real to me was taken by somebody that wasn't using a infrared sensor. They had just had a huge card on it, so it could be going a lot, and had it set to I think it was a 7-second interval. Every 7 seconds, it would just click a picture off. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. It was they had something that kept raiding their fruit trees and taking all the fruit, and they found out what it was. But the pictures previous to it, there was a fox that was actually picking up fruit off the ground, eating them. And then all of a sudden the fox is gone, and there's this ginormous thing where the fox had been standing doing the same thing, picking the fruit up off the ground, eating it.
Was that the was that the picture with the it was picking up apples off the ground and it kind of had some spotty hair, some bald spots in its back?
Well, there's sort of a debate about whether it actually had a young one that was hanging on part of it too, but I'll post the picture for everybody to look at when we put this episode up. Was there anything else you wanted to share with us from your experiences down there, Mike?
That's about it. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens next.
Okay. Well, so
they're only around. I think they're only around every 3 to 4 weeks, or maybe even long. Between that time. I don't think they're here all the time. They go. They got so many places to go.
Well, and that's it too, and they'll follow around the food sources. Like, here's the time of the year when these mushrooms grow up over here in this valley, and here's the time of the year with those berries over there are nice and ripe, and they know when it is, and they'll just go around to where those food sources are and pillage them when they're available, basically. So yeah, it just makes common sense they wouldn't be hanging around by your property all the time.
Yeah, there's not enough around here for them. If I ever get fences put up and goats put in here, then maybe they may have more reason to come around, but then they won't be really that welcome.
And you'll start noticing a subtraction in your number of goats.
Yeah, well, I hope that.
Well, thanks for coming on the show and spending some time talking with us and letting us know your encounters.
Absolutely.
I'd like to let everybody know that Mike is actually an admin on my site, Montana Bigfoot Project. Has been around since the early days. and is just an incredibly helpful person and all around nice guy. And I'm just kind of really happy that he actually has some of these experiences, so I had an excuse to bring him on and talk to him.
Well, I really appreciate your friendship, and I really appreciate being able to come on and talk. It's really been really fun. I talk about this stuff all the time. Nobody ever wants to hear it.
I do too. I talk to you mostly when I'm talking to you about it. Then it's like, okay, then you got somebody to talk to about it.
That's right.
All right, brother. Well, take care.
Right.
And you have a nice evening, and everybody else out there, enjoy your upcoming weekend, and be safe out there and take care of each other.